You asked me why. I just went on and told her. You asked me why. I just went on and told her. You asked me why. I just went on and told her. You asked me why.
All right, we got a lot to do tonight. Let's get started. The Al's Nest Barbecue Show is brought to you by Butcher Barbecue Products, a complete line of rubs, injections, sauces, grilling oils, and supplies. We're also brought to you by the most popular drum smoker in the United States, the Pit Barrel Smoker, the Pit Barrel Cooker. I don't know why I always do that. It's important to call them by what they are. The Pit Barrel Cooker. Stop by the Al's Nest Barbecue Supply Store and see how easy the Pit Barrel Cooker is to use and how affordable it really is. And we're brought to you by Michelin Tires, available at Steve Ray's Midnight Oil in Ottawa, where you pay for the tires and you don't pay for the building. On sale now at the Midnight Oil in Ottawa for all you local folks joining us. Michelin Tires, performance you need. You can pay for the tire, the tail sales tax, and the out-the-door price. Never a charge to mount or balance your tires. Hey, everybody, welcome. To the Al's Nest Barbecue Supply. Barbecues out the Al's Nest Barbecue Show here on the Al's Nest Barbecue Network. We appreciate everybody joining us, and we are looking forward to a great show tonight. Let me do this. Just let me refresh this thing a little bit so I can know what's going on. Now, tonight we've got a great show lined up for you. We have got Lee Thompson from Pig, Chicka, Cow Barbecue from the Florida Barbecue Association. He is the leader in that association right now. Having just an incredible year, and Lee is going to join us. We're not only going to talk barbecue with Lee, we're going to talk burgers, we're going to talk steaks, all sorts of stuff that involves cooking, competition, and the backyard. Something for everybody. And then coming up at 7:20, my friend from Bixby, Oklahoma, David Huff. You've heard of him. You've seen him here. David is a great barbecue pitmaster. He's a caterer. And he has done an experiment with burgers that you are going to love to listen. So make sure you spend the next 40 minutes right here on the Al's Nest Barbecue Show with Steve Ray, Lee Thompson, and David Huff coming up. A little bit of housekeeping real quick. Great turnout last Sunday at the Ace Hardware in East Brandon Road. Byron Mixon was there. He brought Ed. He brought TJ. He brought his wife Faye. And Harold, great job of bringing Myron to Chattanooga. That was a great turnout. You couldn't have done a better job. You had chicken wings for everybody, cookies. Alvin Selvage, my friend, and his son-in-law, we got in on the cookies a little bit. And just a great job. We appreciate you having us out. Fun. He signed my book. I got my Myron Mixon brand new cookbook signed from him. So all 3 books by Myron Mixon I got them signed, and that's a big deal to me. So great job on that, Harold. Also, Frank, everybody's been asking about Frank, my co-host Frank Blair, who usually sits here. He's not here. He had a little surgery a couple weeks ago. Frank's getting better. I saw him and talked with him today. Don't worry, Frank. I'm not going to give it up. And he's doing great. And hopefully he'll be back here in the air chair not too long from now. And also, I want to also remind everybody, September 15th down in Chickamauga, Georgia, is the Blue-Gray Barbecue Contest. It is on the front lawn of the Gordon Lee Mansion. Make your plans now, September the 15th, to come down there. Al's Nest Barbecue will be there this year. And come down there. You talk about a nice time, a great barbecue contest. You'll be able to buy barbecue as well. And the mansion is open for tours. And if you've never been down to the Gordon Lee Mansion in Chickamauga, you owe it to yourself to go down there. It is just a fantastic venue. Okay, we're going to do this right there. We're going to watch me slice some brisket. And just like that, it's magic. Let me find the cursor. Lee, I'm not very good at this yet. So you just stay with me, ladies and gentlemen. Lee Thompson from Pig, Chicka, Cow Barbecue down in. Well, now, what part of Florida are you coming to us from, Lee?
We are in Orlando, Florida, just north of Orlando, in Apopka, Florida.
Oh, okay, in Apopka, Florida. And Lee, folks, yeah. Lee is having a. You won the Florida Barbecue Association last year, correct?
Yes, sir.
And
yes, sir.
And all the accolades and all the awards that come with it. And this year you're leading it. Second place is Tim Malloy. I couldn't go further without mentioning that. And and just having an incredible year. Now, and people will wonder, Lee, when we talk about competition barbecue, what do you get when you do competition barbecue? But we were talking off the air before earlier today, and explain to everybody what it means to when you win a series like the Florida Barbecue Association, all the different contests that you get to go to and compete in that are on a national basis.
Oh yeah, the Florida Barbecue Association is primarily in Florida. There are a couple of contests in Georgia last year. I don't think we have any in Georgia this year, but literally we've been from one point of Florida to the other competing. We also do the KCBS as well, so that has brought us up into Georgia and South Carolina and Alabama over the past couple of weeks. I think last year was the longest Florida Barbecue Association season because they changed. They made the season the calendar year instead of it used to end midsummer. So we actually had an extra 6 months to the season last year. So last year was the longest season ever. So now this year it's a regular calendar year. I think there were like 32 contests last year, and we did every single one of them.
Wow! And
this year there's been 11 so far, and I think there's 7 or 8 more on the calendar for the rest of the year. I was looking at. We traveled all over the Southeast here the past couple of weeks, chasing our 7th win for the automatic jack draw. Mm-hmm. So we've been doing a lot of KCBS, but we have the next 4 or 5 weeks off. And then I was looking at my schedule, and I think I only have 3 or 4 weekends the rest of the year after that I don't have anything to do. So we're going to be competing pretty much every weekend.
Now, getting to the jack is, I guess, everybody's dream. And when you get 7 wins, you get an automatic bid. Lee, do they combine the wins? Like if you get like 2 in KCBS and 5 in FBN, is that 7 count for them?
Yes, sir. I think the biggest thing it really is, your contest has to have 25 teams or more, or it has to be a first-year contest. And a first-year contest can have 15 teams. So we've actually won 11 contests. The jack season is end of July to end of July.
Right.
So we've actually won 11 contests in that time frame, but 4 haven't counted due to not enough teams. One contest actually had enough teams. It had exactly 25, but if one team misses one turn-in, now you don't have 25 teams that turn in all 4 meets. You only have 24 teams that turned in one, so that is no longer a qualifier. So we actually had 11 wins, but we actually have 11 wins, but 4 don't qualify. So
you're on the bubble.
That's why we were driving all over the Southeast.
Yeah, no kidding. I
think
blame
we put about 10,000 on the truck.
Now, before we get into your barbecue history, let's talk a little bit about Jasper, Georgia, last weekend. I had several friends down there.
Yeah.
You may have met them. Q-Nator, Choo Choo Barbecue was down there. Bubba Q was down there. Tell us about that little weather pocket that hit that contest, because I saw the pictures, Lee, and I could not believe that the show went on.
Yeah, honestly, we rolled in Thursday night, and I'm glad we did, because we were actually going to wait and show up Friday morning. But we showed up Thursday night, and it was actually raining pretty hard Thursday night. We're trying to set up the trailer Thursday night, and I got it leveled, and it was raining so hard that when I put the jack down, the jack slid, and my trailer fell off the blocks.
Oh, no.
And, luckily no one got hurt. Yeah, that was a scary situation for a little bit. But luckily no one got hurt or anything. We hooked it back up to the truck, and Randall and Amanda Bowman were the organizers for that. And then I called up Amanda, and she's like, yeah, we'll get you in a flatter spot. And she moved us down next to the stream. Well, that was a great spot. It was level. I got the trailer set up in about 2 minutes, right?
Uh-oh.
Well, unbeknownst to me, on Friday, we got a huge torrential downpour. I guess the locals in Jasper said that was the hardest rain they've received in years. Well, we're sitting there, and it's pouring, and I'm watching this little stream rise and rise and rise. And at one point, Amanda started getting a little nervous, and we started putting stuff in the truck in case we had to abandon the trailer and head for some higher ground, because literally the whole park turned into part of the stream for a period of time. It was muddy, and we were concerned for a little bit, but it was crazy. As soon as it went down, the stream it drained, and the sun came out on Saturday, and then the public came out and enjoyed the vendors and stuff, and it turned out to be a fantastic contest on Saturday. But
isn't that weird?
Friday
it's like nothing ever happened.
Sketchy.
Yeah. I've been in rains like that. We had one at the World's Fair Park in Knoxville a couple of years ago, and the rain's coming. You think this is the worst thing in the world, and all of a sudden the sun comes back out, and all the water's gone, and it's like, what happened? Nothing. It was like nothing happened. Did any of the water come up over the trailer, into the trailer at all?
Not ours. We were probably about 15 feet from the edge of the stream, cresting into the trailer. I was looking, like, there was a road that was causing the water to back up, and I was trying to figure out if the water would go over the road before it would flood our trailer. And I think we would have had water underneath the trailer, but I think it would have went over the road before it came inside. But there was another team, I think Water Hogs, kind of a fitting name. It was up touching the bottom of their trailer, like up over the wheels and tires and stuff, and actually touching the bottom of the trailer. So they were at the lowest point in the whole park. I know I saw their coolers and stuff were starting to get, water build up around them. So
yeah.
It was sketchy for sure.
Well, when it was all said and done, though, your team walks away with the grand championship, doesn't it?
Yes, sir. I love these smaller 25-team contests, because every single team gets judged by this, each judge one time. There's 4 tables, and there's probably other pitmasters out there that would say the same thing. Like, this is the contest we want. No one can complain about a table of death or a table of angels or whatever, because there are 4 tables. So that means that our meets hit each judge one time.
Right.
And it ends up being, in my mind, that's a perfect contest, because no one's going to get treated unfairly by one judge.
So how did you?
So we ended up.
Let's see, you were born in 1982. That makes you 1 year younger than my son. So you're what, 36? Is that right? 36. Yeah. Is that right?
Yeah. Sounds right.
Sounds right.
Amanda always makes fun of me because I can never remember.
Yeah, that changes as you get older. I'm sure you. When what got Lee Thompson and his wife and family into barbecue? Because you're kind of an anomaly out there. There's not a whole lot of young guys like you out there. They're usually a little bit older, but I think it's great. I think it's great that they've got some young people. What got you into it?
That's actually a funny. I'm from central Pennsylvania, and barbecue is not really it's not as large as it is here in the South. And I actually, growing up, I hated barbecue. And then when I moved to Florida, I realized that it's not that I didn't like barbecue. It's just my dad was a terrible cook, and he would put the barbecue sauce on beforehand, and he would burn it, and it was just trash, right?
Bad food.
So yeah, I moved. Yeah,
Throw
I
Dad
moved
right
to
under
Florida
the bus.
after college. What's that?
I said, throw Dad right under the bus. Go ahead.
Yeah, so I moved to Florida after college and stuff, pursuing my career, and I actually went to Las Vegas for a couple months for work. And the guy out there, he introduced me to Mike Mills's restaurant out there in Vegas. What is it called? I don't remember what the name of it is. But then, I tried it and I was like, well, this is barbecue. This is amazing.
Yeah.
And ever since then, I've been hooked. Like we, started watching the Pitmasters and stuff on TV. And
exactly.
Amanda got me my first smoker for my birthday. And we just started on our Weber Smoky Mountain. And that's still what I love to cook on today. I have 2 Sweet Smoke U drums that I cook on as well for the bigger meats because it has just a bigger fire basket. But what I love about it is it's similar to what I've learned on, and that's they cook very similar for me. So I'm a little different than most of the guys out there because we're still cooking low and slow on some drums in Smoky Mountains rather than hot and fast on the drums.
Well, and, it works either way on those drums, especially on Jim's drums. They're so fantastic. I mean, they're just a great vessel. What
It allows me to get a full night's sleep.
Yeah, so you started on a Weber Smoky Mountain, right?
Yep.
Okay,
Yep.
And then you went to the drums,
and
then
so
what?
I had an electric smoker for a while,
okay.
But I wouldn't really count that as a starting. I mean, it was a good place to get your feet wet and get some flavor profiles down and stuff. But first real smoker was a Smoky Mountain.
Yeah. What So when was your first contest? How many years ago did you take the plunge into it?
So we actually started as judges first. We decided we wanted to be. We did some traveling across the country, eating at all like the best barbecue restaurants, like Big Bob Gibson and 17th Street and Blue Smoke and the Shed, and just all over the country. And then we went to Texas and did that whole, Franklin's and Blacks and all that out there. And we were like, all right, well, we've tasted some of the best barbecue in the country. Why don't we become judges and see, what competition barbecue tastes like?
Yeah.
And our very first time judging, we were like, you know what we make at home, we could do this. Like, we could probably do well at this. And on our way home from judging our very first contest, that's when we came up with our team name. And we were just in the car, and one thing led to another, and I said it, and I was like, all right, that's it. That's our team name. That's what we're going to go with. And it's kind of stuck, and everyone seems to like it. It's catchy,
Yeah,
and
it's
we judged a couple more times. We judged a couple more times, and we did a little unsanctioned 4-meat contest, and then we decided to take Jim Elser's Sweet Smoke Q competition barbecue class, which he has one coming up this weekend that we're going to help him with. And we went out the following weekend from taking his class and took 3rd overall in the pro division at a 50-some team contest. So there's nothing more that'll hook you into this than winning. Like, doing well, you go out there and you do well one time, and you will do this forever.
Well, the worst thing you can do is get a call and be in the top 10 first time out.
We went out there. We went out there our first time out, and I'm gonna say this is really all because of Jim's class. Is we went out our first time and got 5 calls. So,
oh my gosh!
I mean, that was incredible, and 3 of them. 4 of them were top 5.
Yeah. So you're winning. So you're winning not only the you're placing all 4 meats. You're winning the ancillaries too, then, aren't you?
Well, it was. I think chicken was our worst at 10th, and then we were in the top 5 in ribs, pork, and brisket, and then we were 3rd overall. So that's the 5 calls.
Oh, okay.
But we do some
meats
as well. We do. We do some ancillaries as well. We do the SCA and some dessert ancillaries here and there.
Well, you've had a fantastic run, and you've put together a string of wins that has been not seen in years in the Florida Barbecue Association. A couple days ago, I went online and checked out your YouTube channel and saw that hamburger video that you made. And you introduced me
Yeah.
to this right here, spray duck fat. Now tell me a little bit about this stuff because I tried it last night
Yeah.
on a
So
couple burgers. It's insane good. I mean, it's insane.
yeah, I actually came across that stuff doing, when the guy first released it, he was just looking for some people to try it. And I came across it on Facebook or something. And, I was like, oh, that sounds amazing. And we were just starting in the SCA. So I was like, all right, I'm looking for something to give me an edge. So why don't we buy some of this stuff and try it? And I bought it, and I had no place local was selling it at that point in time. So I had to buy it online somewhere, and I think directly from the manufacturer or something. And, we tried it, and I was like, man, this stuff's amazing. And we cooked some steaks with it. We cooked pretty much anything we put on the grill. We're using that on it. And we did the KCBS Bass Pro Shop deal a couple weeks ago, where Bass Pro Shop and KCBS team up and feed samples to the public.
Yeah.
And we did some tri-tips, and tri-tips are really good, but you add that duck fat to it, and we rubbed it with some Luton Booty. What's your beef? Man, the public went nuts over that. It was perfect, and the duck fat makes a nice taste on the outside.
Jason, how does that work when you cook at the Bass Pro Shops? Because I've always felt that Bass Pro Shops are right on the edge of being a major player in competition barbecue. They haven't quite taken the plunge, but I keep waiting every year for that big announcement to come, as the way the Sam's Club used to sponsor a KCBS contest trail. I really do think that the Bass Pro Shops is going to start that. So how do they do that? What do you do when you participate in that? Because I've got a real interest in doing that here in Chattanooga.
Oh, it was fantastic. I think you have to be a KCBS member, and the KCBS actually reaches out to you, to local teams around Bass Pro Shops, and ask them if they want to do it. They give you a little bit of money to buy your meats and stuff with, but I think we blew that budget cooking tri-tip, but it was more for the fun of it. It's not very. I think one of the problems with competition barbecue right now is that we're not out there talking to the public as much as maybe they used to be in the past. So the public's not as involved in competition barbecue, and without the public for sponsors to promote their products to, we're not going to grow. And this Bass Pro Shop event gives the public a chance to come and meet these pitmasters who on Saturday, we don't really want to be bothered, to be honest, because we're trying to focus on winning. At 2:00 on Saturday, you can come by and I'll give you all my leftovers. You can try everything. But the Bass Pro Shop event was great because, we got to meet so many people coming in and out of that Bass Pro Shop, tell them about competition barbecue, let them sample some of our food. Granted, we don't cook tri-tip for competition barbecue, but I wanted to cook something different that was, a quick cook that morning at the store. And it was just the right thing to cook, I thought. And we actually had a bunch of leftover pork from competitions that we vacuum sealed and froze, and we heated that up. So we actually served pork and tri-tip. And man, we had a line all day long just handing out samples. And it's really part of the Bass Pro Shops Go Outdoors event, and they team up with the KCBS to try to promote competition barbecue and try to get the public into it again.
Well, that's a good thing to do, and I think that's kudos to you and your team for going out there and being the face of barbecue, because you obviously you represent yourself well, you represent your team well, and you represent the KCBS organization as well. All right. We've got David Huff on the other side of the phone line getting ready to come in. But first, I want to get your pig chicka cow barbecues secret burger recipe from the YouTube video that people can go to the YouTube and see. But I want to hear it straight from you. Lee, go ahead.
So I'm gonna apologize ahead of time because that was our first video that we shot with the new camera.
It was good. It was good.
Learning how to do it.
Don't apologize. It was good.
So we actually got some Wagyu burgers from the butcher shop in Pensacola, and a lot of teams are using those A9 briskets from the butcher shop, and they actually take their trimmings from the A9 briskets and their Wagyu beef that they're coming in, and they grind those trimmings up and make burger meat out of it. So all you competition teams out there that order your briskets from them, have them throw in a package of their burgers. They're freaking fantastic. They're so juicy and so flavorful. But so we hit it with they were preformed patties, so we didn't have to form them or anything. So we seasoned them with some Boar's Night Out White Lightning, and then Jim Elser has a new brisket rub that he's coming out with. So we hit it with a little bit of that. Some other rubs that I've liked that I've been testing lately are, well, on the burgers that I've done in the past is I like to put a layer of like Poncho and Lefties down, and then hit it with Luton Booty, What's Your Beef, or Heath Riles Beef Rub, or Heath Riles Everyday Rub are both good as well. So we hit it with a little rub on both sides. And then what I like to do is just give it a little real quick spray of that duck fat and put it, I like to use the flat side of the grill grates and cook it like a flat top. And I'm a big fan of the flip method. Like, they say brown is beautiful when it comes to meat. And, if you leave it there too long, that brown quickly turns to black and gets a little overcharred or overdone. And I'm not a big fan of that overchar.
Yeah.
So, I like that nice brown crust on the outside. And I think the flip gives you that. And then also helps you cook the burger from end to end more evenly. So, about every minute and a half, depending on how hot your heat is. If your heat's a little higher, you might want to flip a little more often so you don't get that burn, right? And so when your burger's up to about 135 degrees, I like mine medium, and it's going to carry over up to 140. Yeah. So, make sure you have a good quality meat if you're not going, higher than 140. So I actually like to put my burgers on a pretzel bun. And one thing about the pretzel bun is that, the next thing I do is I put a piece of lettuce down on the bottom half of the bun, so that way all that juice from the burger doesn't make the bun soggy. And then I like to put all my toppings, then the rest of my toppings on top.
I thought that was a great idea that you had, putting that layer of lettuce down to keep that bottom bun from getting wet. I thought that was a real good tactic. And once you see somebody like you do it, a professional do it, you think, boy, that makes sense. Because you get so oftentimes you go to a restaurant and by the time you get it, you can't even eat it. And it's just those little tricks like that. Well, Lee,
Thank you.
It sounds like you.
I can't say that that's. Yeah.
What's that? The YouTube channel is Pig Chicka Cow Barbecue, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay, and anybody can
we're on
that.
YouTube, Facebook, Instagram.
Yep.
Facebook too. You can find us on all social media.
Yep.
All of it's at Pig Chicka Cow. We have some great sponsors. Am I allowed to?
Absolutely, I want you
tell
to.
you about some of them.
I want you to. It'd be great.
Okay, so we have Megabyte Barbecue, their barbecue supply store here in Orlando. They, supply us with all our rubs and sauces. Hooked us up with Heath Riles. We use Heath Riles sauces and rubs in competition. We got Jim Elser, who's been our biggest fan, literally, with Sweet Smoke Q, who's been our biggest fan since we started.
Great guy.
Like I said, we took his class. It's, he has a tell-all class. If you're looking to take a class, I highly recommend his class. We have a wood and charcoal supplier out of Tampa, Black Dog Firewood, who supplies us with all of our charcoal and wood that we use in competition. Unknown Smoker, they make the unknown hinge for the Weber Smoky Mountains and kettles and drums and all that. We have that sharpening guy. You may have never met him, Steve, but a lot of the South Georgia guys and Florida guys know him because he shows up at the competitions. He has a trailer and he sharpens everyone's knives for them. And, it's a really fantastic service. And he sharpens for some restaurants and stuff around here. We have Semper Med gloves. They make some black nitrile gloves that are fantastic. And trying to think here, I feel like I'm missing someone. But yeah, I think that's it.
That's Lee. That's tremendous to have that much support for your team. I really appreciate you being with us. We're going to get you back on more towards the Jack when you're after you qualify. I know you'll qualify, and we'll maybe get you back on. If that's okay. Go ahead.
We already qualified, so we're.
Oh, okay, great.
We got our 7th win there. So
okay, fantastic.
So we're in for sure.
Well, when we get closer, because I'll be there this year covering it for a local media outlet, and when we get closer, we'll get you back on, and we'll do a show about getting ready for it. Okay.
Perfect.
Lee,
good.
Thank you so much. We appreciate you very much. All right, we're gonna go behind the magic. You bet. Thank you, Lee Thompson. Pig, Chicka Cow. And let's see here. We're gonna go find David Huff. We got plenty of time, folks. Don't run off. This is what's so beautiful about the internet. We can take all the time we want. Let's see. Getting a hold of David Huff in Oklahoma. Bixby, Oklahoma, to be exact. Hello, David. You with us, David? David's getting ready. As you can see, he is getting ready as we speak. Now, this is going to be worth it, folks. Don't run off, because what David has done in the hamburger realm is just short of incredible. David, you tell me when you're ready. Not yet. Thanks to Lee Thompson. This is going to be worth it. I hear him now. Lee Thompson of Pig Chicka Cow barbecue team with a great burger recipe. Go to his YouTube channel, and you can look him up, Lee Thompson. I'm sure you'll come there, and he's got a great burger video that they've done. He's real professional, and he goes into great detail. David, you with us?
Chicka Cow barbecue team with a great burger recipe. Go to his YouTube channel, and you can use it. I'm sure you'll come there. And
get those headphones in there. David is working feverishly, folks. You are watching live television. This is more exciting than the space launch that we just celebrated 50 years. You with us, David? And he's left us. Let's call him back. Hang on just a second. Second. Says David is unavailable. But David is trying to get his Skype in order. but that's okay. We will get him on in just a second. The Huff Daddy Barbecue is David's. It's David's YouTube channel. He's got a tremendous selection of videos on there, and if you want to see some great videos and great cooking, he cooks on a Yoder pellet cooker, and he's really good. He's got a really nice cooker, and David he's cut above most of us, and he does a great job. Let's see if we can't pick him up again.
If you want to see some great videos,
Hey, David.
Yoder, pellet cooker. And he's really good.
Steve, are you there?
I'm here, David. Are you there?
I don't know why it was ringing on my iPad and my iPhone, but it wouldn't let me connect on the PC like I usually do. So I apologize.
Well, that's okay. Go ahead and click your camera button so we can see you.
There we
There
go.
you are. There you are, ladies and gentlemen. David Huff from Bixby, Oklahoma. Huff Daddy's Barbecue is with us live. David, I wanted to get you on last night because I'm kind of, I don't want to call it cheating, but I wanted everybody, all of my listeners that listen to us, sharing what you did last night, because what you did on these, I don't want to call them experiments, David. I want to call them different methodologies that you used on the burgers. I want you to go over and take your time. We've got plenty of time. We can blow past 40 minutes. It's okay. We're on the internet, because I want everybody that's watching to listen. This is some really interesting stuff that I heard it last night, and I can't wait to hear it again. And if you might even want to take notes, folks, because what David's about to tell you, some pretty in-depth stuff about burgers. Hey, before we start though, David, have you seen this stuff? The duck fat?
I've seen it, but I never thought of using it on a burger. I've seen it used before on YouTube videos and on the cooking channel, but yeah, I never thought of spraying it on a burger.
I did last night before the show. We did on the Barbecue Central show. David, it's good.
I'm gonna try
stuff.
it. I know that a lot of places do their French fries cooked in duck fat, and everyone always raves on that. So I can only imagine it's duck fat. It can't be bad.
Yeah. Well, David Huff of Huff Daddy Barbecue is with us, and we are right in the middle of our 40 days of burgers. We've got Claude, Wes, and Charlie Potts. Gary Depew is listening with us. David, if you would be so kind to go back over the things that you did in your methodology of the burger, I think, because this is some pretty interesting stuff. If you're especially if you're a backyard cook and you're trying to master the burger, because I know everybody can do burgers, David. We talked about that a little bit last night. We can all do them, and everybody can do a burger. It's the first thing most people do. But the difference between everybody doing a burger and the next level burger, there's a big difference, I think. Don't you think?
Absolutely. Burgers can be as simplistic as you want them to be, but forget which one of us said it last night. Just like Bloody Marys have gone from tomato juice, vodka, some spices, etc., to they've got sliders and ribs and everything crazy hanging off of them.
Mm-hmm.
Burgers are pretty similar. I mean, 4 or 5 patties with all kinds of interesting, toppings. But what I wanted to do, and Steve, first off, thank you so much for having me on your show. I always have a great time when I visit you, and you're a great host. The experiment that I wanted to do was to test 3 kind of myths that are out there about burgers. And your first guest, Lee, actually touched on it a little bit. The myth number 1 was, how many times should you flip a burger? Because I was always under the impression of what he said people talk about most. You put it on once, you let it set, you flip it 1 time, and that's it. That was what I always was under the impression worked best. And then I was listening to the Food Network and heard Alex Guarnacelli say, that guy's flipping his burgers multiple times. That's really good because that redistributes the meat, the juices in the meat, and helps keep it moist and helps it cook better. Almost similar to what Lee said, right?
Right.
So I thought, let's test that theory. And I got 8 patties. First off, I used 80/20 ground chuck.
Mhm.
I did not season the burgers. Didn't want the salt and spices for this part of the test to affect the meat. And I made sure they were 8 ounces, roughly 1 inch thick, and I packed them with a hand press to make sure that I had a nice, even burger all the way around. I then took the flat side of the grill grates on a gas grill, and the only reason I used gas was just because I wanted the temperature to be as even as possible throughout the whole surface. And I set it at about 535 degrees. And I took my IR thermometer and made sure all the spots on the grill were pretty even. And then I cooked the 8 burgers. And here's what I did. I flipped 2 of them every 30 seconds. I cooked them all for 8 minutes, by the way, so I figured 30 seconds would be about as that would maximize the amount of times that you could turn the burger realistically. And then I cooked 2 and flipped them every minute. I cooked 2 and flipped them every 2 minutes. And then the one was flipped at the 4-minute mark, so it was only flipped 1 time. Afterwards, I let them rest for 5 minutes, and then I did 2 things. I checked temperature and cut them open for doneness to look and see how well they were cooked. But first, I weighed them, and I wanted to see the comparison of the weight before and after, because that gave me an idea how much water and moisture was lost during the process. So that was the test.
And what were the results?
The results were interesting. So I'll start with the most often flipped burger every 30 seconds. Obviously, as you would expect, had a little trouble keeping that one together. After 30 seconds, it didn't really have time to set up on the grill. It fell apart. I tried my best to contain all the meat that formed the patty, but it had lost the most moisture at almost 33%. Those burgers had 31 and 33% moisture loss.
Okay.
And then on the other end, the ones that were only flipped once, those had the least amount of moisture lost at 25%. Is 8% difference in moisture that big of a deal? I don't know. Maybe, maybe not.
Oh, I think in a burger it is. I think in a burger it's a big deal.
Yeah, I mean, we're talking about an 8-ounce patty,
Yeah.
so that can be a considerable amount of moisture. I looked at the crust. The crust was obviously noticeably better on the ones that were flipped less often. Here's the interesting part of it. The ones that were flipped more often, cooked over the same amount of time, cooked to a higher temperature. So those actually cooked all the way up to 140 internal, or the one I only flipped 1 time was still at 128. So that's the difference in, a medium rare burger to almost a medium well burger in the same amount of time. And I'm guessing in my head that had to do with once you've got a burger on one side, you're only heating up the bottom of it. It's starting to form that crust, almost shielding the rest of it from the meat. You're not cooking it as evenly, getting the heat to hit both sides and cook the meat all sides at once. So all burgers by the people that tested them were classified as what they would consider a juicy burger, so even the ones that were flipped often. But everyone actually preferred the 2 that were flipped the least. And the winner would be the one that was flipped about 3 times every 2 minutes, because that was the best combination of crust, moisture retention, and it cooked faster than the one that was only flipped 1 time.
Now, David, when I was a kid, when I was 14, I went to work at a Hardee's, and in those days, way before you were born, we actually cooked on a gas grill that was in the back of the restaurant. And we were taught when we were cooking that you only flipped them 1 time. The patties were frozen, of course. And you put the patties on there, and you looked for a certain amount of bubbling on the top of the meat. And then when it reached that bubbling, it didn't boil, but you know how it comes to the top. That's when you turned it over. And to this day, I have cooked burgers and steaks that way. I've never been a 2 flipper. I've always been flipping them 1 time. What did the people who tried the different burgers, it sounds like the 30-second flip was, I don't know if you could even tasted that. Am I correct? It had fallen apart so much.
It had still maintained somewhat of a burger shape, but there was no significant advantage to doing that you would ever want to mess with flipping the burger that much. And it did not have quite the same crust. What was
the ultimate goal was to make a good tasting burger. The people that tasted it, what were their comments as to the ones that were flipped once and 3 times?
Well, strangely enough, because we didn't season these burgers because we didn't want that to impact it, none of them thought the flavors of the burgers were fantastic because there was no salt, pepper seasoning of any kind.
I
But
see.
what they did comment on was the moisture. They definitely thought the burgers flipped less, were a little more moist, but the main thing was that outside crust, and it had also not overcooked. Some people would say cooking a burger to 140 plus may be a little overcooked. I prefer my burgers closer to medium rare. I believe the people did as well because they preferred the burgers that were cooked a little bit less temperature in that 8 minutes.
That's interesting. All right, what was
Yep.
the next? What was the next method test you did?
Well, we'll go to the seasoning part because there's different sides of the fence here. Should you season the meat all throughout, which is what I used to do? I used to take my seasoning and mix it up in the ground beef and form my patties, and that way I knew there was seasoning all throughout. But then there's some stuff on the web as well as on the Food Network at Alton Brown, and I believe Meat had mentioned this as well. If you add the moisture, especially very far ahead of time, or if you add, the seasonings to the ground beef and then form the patty, you'll actually get your meat to be tough. So I wanted to test the theory. Do you just season the outside of the meat, or do you season the meat throughout? So I took exactly the same thing, 8-ounce patties. I took a half a teaspoon of Butcher's Barbecue Grilling Addiction because it's my favorite seasoning all around.
Absolutely.
I seasoned the inside and threw out the burger on one patty, and then I seasoned on 2 patties, and then I seasoned only the outside of the burger on the other 2 patties. Cooked them exactly the same way, same temperature, same time, let them rest for 5 minutes, and then asked the people to test them. I wanted to test the flavor overall, and I wanted to test the tenderness of the meat. And the results were almost as you'd expect. The patties that were seasoned throughout had a more intense flavor in every bite. And I'm guessing that's part of the seasoning wasn't cooked. You know, seasoning on the outside will cook down and form that crust. So there would have been raw seasoning, if you will, on the inside of the meat that had not received that type of heat. That was a more intense flavor, but they did say that the burger itself was not quite as tender as the burgers that were only seasoned on the outside. They had formed a slightly better crust, the one seasoned on the outside, but the overwhelming majority, in fact, it was consensus, all of the people that tried the burgers preferred the one that was only seasoned on the outside. They said it was much more tender, and the crust helped, and there was still enough flavor that they enjoyed it.
Was there any difference in the moisture level? Is that what they were calling tenderness, David?
No, because believe it or not, the moisture level was exactly the same for both of them. It was 28% moisture loss, so almost identical to the first experiment. But what they said is, to the tooth, when you bite into it, not the juiciness level, but the firmness of the meat itself. And I would compare that to eating a meatloaf, which may be a little more it'd be moist, but it would just have more of a firm texture than a burger that was more loose and put together less like a meatball.
All right, what was the next method test?
Okay, and the last thing we tested was this divot that everybody talks about. You'll see Bobby Flay on the Food Network. He always says, hey, put the divot in the burger. And the reason for that is as that burger expands from the heat, it's going to start to have almost a dome effect. So it's going to be nice and thick in the middle, and then the edges are going to taper down. Kind of makes it awkward to set your toppings on it. The bun wobbles back and forth, etc. So we put the burger, we took one with hand pattied, one hand pattied with the divot, and one was made in the press. And it was obviously more uniform going onto the grill. And the results were this. The divoted and the hand pattied formed almost exactly the same dome. So coming on the edge and getting a little bit bigger, and then the one that was shaped with the press, it kept its shape throughout the cook. It didn't dome up, and I mean, I didn't really ask what people like better. I was more looking for shape on this one, but it just looked like a more appealing burger to the eye. The one that started out even, cooked even, didn't dome up. So I've always been the type to patting my burgers by hand until recently I started using a press. Really, the key is handle the meat as little as possible. If you're going to make it by hand, barely pack it in, get a nice uniform shape. Nothing wrong with using a press as long as you're not just packing it in there. Gently press it down just for that uniformity, and I think that's the way to go.
But David, it sounds like the burger with the press is the one that you didn't put your thumbprint in that one, right?
That's correct. There was no indentation in that burger.
And it didn't form that bubble in the middle either, right?
No, I would say that it was the most like a pre-pattied burger or a frozen patty that has the shape, right, from the manufacturer, from the press. And those usually don't dome up the way that most hand-pattied burgers do.
You see, I've always used, when I do burgers, number one, I usually buy mine from the store that they're already made, and they come in that little styrofoam tray with the plastic over it, and already pre-made. And I'm like you, I'm an 80-20 guy all the way. When I do take the time to make mine, I pack mine in. I've got you've probably seen them. They're red. You can buy them on Amazon. They have a hinge on them. You open the hinge, you stuff a ball of meat in there, then you press it down. Have you seen what I'm talking about? Real simple.
Sure.
And sometimes you put a little piece of cellophane in there to pop it up real easy. And they're real tightly packed. And I have never had trouble with a hamburger popping up in the middle. The first time I heard about the thumb thing in the middle was a couple years ago, and I had never heard of it. And I said, because somebody was at the house, and they go, "Aren't you going to put your thumb in the middle?" And I said, "What are you talking about?" And he was explaining. I said, "I've never had that happen. Keep your hands off my meat." So, I've never had that trouble, and I think it's because I guess it's the firm of the pack of the beef is probably do you think that might be the key to it?
Yeah, so the uniformity of a pre-made patty is definitely going to help negate that doming effect. I was a little tough on you last night with the handmade patties. Again, I think you can absolutely get handmade patties already done at the store, especially if you're buying frozen, especially if you're cooking for a crowd. I think the reason why I like to form mine by hand is because I like my burgers typically a little thicker, because that gives me a chance to leave that middle a little more pink while the outsides form that crust. If you get them too thin, by the time you form a nice crust on the outside, you've really cooked the middle almost completely through, unless you just have a scorching hot griddle. And then, as Lee said earlier, you get a scorching hot griddle, boy, you turn around because somebody asks you a question, you don't pay any attention, and the next thing you know, that brown has turned to black in a hurry.
Yeah.
So I like the slightly thicker patties because that gives you more of a chance to get the middle closer to a medium rare. John made a good point. Well, hey, why not double up on the patties instead of having a nice thick burger? Can certainly do that. I just, again, prefer a loosely packed, almost 1.5 to 2 inch thick patty. And then if you're doing a 2 inch patty, you do not want the middle to dome up on you to 2.5, 3 inches, or then you've got just a ridiculous burger to try to eat.
What causes, and you probably know this from all the experience you've got, sometimes when you go over somebody's house and they're not that I am, but they're not a real cook, and they serve hamburgers, and they bring the burgers in from the grill, and they started out a decent size, but they come back and they put them on the bun. You know what I'm talking about? And there's no, like Doug said, he likes his with the love handles hanging out, and I do too. But sometimes they shrink them up so badly, and I guess that's just from being overdone. Don't you think that just because their wives say cook that ground meat to 180 degrees, and the thing about burgers that I've read and that I have done, even at a restaurant, if you know where the meat is coming from, if you go to the Publix here in Chattanooga, and it's 80-20 ground chuck, and you're very I've got a lot of faith and a lot of confidence in the butchers there at the Ooltewah Publix, or if you go to a restaurant like J. Alexander's, and that their burgers are going to be ground up ribeyes. Maybe what I'm saying is they're getting their fat from ribeyes and they're lean from tenderloins. You can order those burgers medium rare. I ordered my burger, the one I got last week at the local restaurant here, Wine Down, that Chef Marcus Gardner made for me, and it was Wagyu beef, and I wanted that medium rare, and he said no problem. You know,
Yep.
they don't mind doing it a bit because they know the quality of that meat can sustain a medium rare. Or do you have any thoughts on the cooking? Because a lot of people freak out when they go, "Oh, ground beef medium rare." David, I had an uncle in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, when I was a kid. They ate cannonballs. You know what cannonballs were? They rolled up little rolls of ground beef and ate them raw.
Tiger meat, according to
Is it?
Greg, right?
Is that what
Tiger
that
meat.
is? Tiger meat?
Yeah, raw hamburger meat.
Yeah,
So
and I mean,
you're
I never did
exactly
that.
right,
That's
Steve.
disgusting.
My job outside of the barbecue that I do, I'm actually going in and out of slaughterhouses for beef, chickens, pigs. I'm going out of further processing. I've been in some big, national recognized names
Yeah,
and seen the meat being manufactured. And I can tell you the standards in which they all have to go by now, I mean, they're very high. Um, and I think that all comes from the handling after the fact, right? What happens in the chain from the time it gets processed there to the grocery store? Has it sat somewhere that it shouldn't? Has it not stayed below 40 degrees? Has it been in that danger zone for 4 hours? If you trust where the meat comes from or ground it yourself, there's absolutely no reason why you can't eat,
yeah,
in my opinion, a medium rare burger. I mean, of course, FDA will tell you you need to cook that to 165 degrees because at 165 degrees, any bacteria would be killed instantly, any foodborne pathogens, right?
right.
But that's a combination of heat and time. You could actually, given enough time at 140 degrees, you could eat a chicken breast that way at 140 if it stayed above 140 for 14, 15 minutes.
Right.
Now, it probably wouldn't taste very good. You wouldn't like the texture of it, but you could do it and be safe. Same with ground beef. So I think the amount of time that it's on the grill, especially with that super hot surface, most of your bacteria is on the outside of the meat.
I agree.
That's instantly killed when it hits that 200 degrees. You're really, really worried about just penetrating into the first layer or so of beef. Man, I'm with you, Steve. If you there's a reason you don't go to Burger King, McDonald's, etc., and they don't ask you how do you want it cooked, right?
That's
They don't ask you do
That's
you
right.
want it medium rare. But if you go to a real nice restaurant and they give you the choice, typically if they're giving you the choice of how you want it to cook or how you want it cooked, I feel like it's going to be safe to eat it that way, or they wouldn't be giving you the choice.
Yeah, if usually my rule of thumb is if I'm out going to get a burger, and they say, nah, we won't, we like to do a medium. I'll order a steak medium rare. I'll go ahead and get a steak instead of the burger because
Fair enough.
if they don't trust their meat, I don't trust it either. David, great information, and you did what a lot of us have always wanted to try, but we just don't take the time to do it because it's fun getting in the kitchen and getting on the grill and getting people around and try this, try that. What do you think? I know when we first started our barbecue team, we were doing chicken like that. We'd have a whole bunch of people over to the house and get them to try stuff. What do you think about this? What do you think about that? And that's a lot of fun. And that's one of the fun things about backyard grilling and backyard cooking is getting your friends over for an event like you did and still sharing a lot of fellowship too. And I applaud you for it.
Couldn't agree more, Stephen. Thank you. It's barbecue is a social activity, in my opinion. There's no reason why if you've got something on the smoker or burgers on the grill that you're not sitting there having a beer or a beverage and talking to your friends. And if there's somebody that they know spends a lot of time, like I have a YouTube channel, you have a barbecue show, people are going to ask us questions because they realize that we at least have spent enough time that we've developed some sort of knowledge on it. And people learn things, One was always like, man, I flip the heck out of them, and they always fall apart, and they always overcook, and this taught him something, and he's just a backyard guy. He's got no skin in the game for it being a career whatsoever.
Yeah, and I
And,
wonder
it's a good time.
why the that lady you're talking about from Food Network. I don't. What was her name again?
Alex
I
Cornicelli.
know which one she is. I wonder why she would say something like that when it appears to me that it's just not true. Of course, there's a lot of myths out there in cooking that aren't true, and we still adhere to it day after day after day.
So I would liken it to this. You ask a guy from Texas, you know, how you going to cook your brisket, fat side up or fat side down? And he's going to say fat side up, and he's probably not going to give you any factual reason. He's going to tell you what he thinks to be the case. But in his mind, that's the way you cook it.
Yeah.
And the reasoning is because of what he knows. Maybe it's not based on fact. I think it's like that. There's so many things with cooking that you can go one way or the other. And if you've always done it a certain way and you've liked the results, you just state it as a fact. And so maybe she flips her burgers often and believes them to be more juicy. This experiment, I don't know. It's as best as I could do in the backyard with the tools that I have. But the results were fairly consistent. They make sense logically if you sit down and think about it. And so I don't know why she'd say that,
Okay,
but probably because half of America feels that way.
Let's take it.
I don't know.
We've still got time. Let's take it one step further, David, because this is so interesting to me. So doing all that experiment that you did, all the research and what you did. Now, tell me the steps of the Huff Daddy Burger.
Okay.
If the Rays
I'm
are
going to
coming
start
over
with
to the
80-20. Well, first I am going to grind my own meat if I can, because I agree with you. It's the only way to know where it came from. Experiment with, brisket and short rib and ribeye or filet if you want to. Grind your own meat, but most people can't do that. If not, 80-20 chuck at the store, maybe some sirloin, perfectly fine. I personally am not going to have it pre-pattied if I have some sort of a press that can make it uniform. If I can't make it uniform, let them patty it at the store. Get an 80-20 pre-pattied, because I think the uniformity of the burger beforehand has more to do with it than the hand-pattied versus the not. I'm going to season it on the outside, and I'm going to season it only about 5 minutes or less before I put it on the grill. Not going to season it ahead of time. I don't want the salt to draw any moisture out of that burger towards the surface. I'm not trying to get a bark. That is different than the crust. And I'm going to put it on at whatever temperature I want, probably 550 to 500 degrees, somewhere in that range. And a light coating of oil. I didn't mention that in the experiment, but I do put a light coating of oil brushed on just to stop it from sticking.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what, I'm going to use that duck fat
Yeah.
now that you mentioned it
Absolutely.
from now on.
Absolutely.
I prefer cooking my burgers on a flat, either grill grate or griddle or cast iron pan, just because I want that nice brown Maillard effect on the outside of the burger. If I was doing it on a charcoal grill, I would probably go directly on the grate just to get more of that charcoal flavor from the smoke and seasoning. But I'm cooking it probably not 8 minutes. Probably cooking it more close to the 6 minute range. And I'm going to flip it 2 or 3 times in the process of doing that. Then I'm going to let it rest for 5 minutes. Of course, if I'm not doing a scientific experiment, I believe you have to have cheese on every burger. A burger without cheese is just pointless to me, personal preference, and I'm going to make sure the cheese is melted. The worst thing to be is at somebody's backyard barbecue, and they hand you a burger, and you ask them for cheese, and they give you a slice of cold cheese and tell you to put it on the burger. Oh, it frustrates me, because it doesn't take much effort to put the cheese on the grill and let it melt.
How dare you, man?
Yeah. So the other thing, Lee mentioned a slice of lettuce on the bun. I do typically toast the buns, but I also think that mayonnaise or something with an oil base to it, butter or mayonnaise or something on that bun, will also help with the juice from the burger to not make that bun soggy. So if you don't want to put lettuce on it, or if you're going to put a tomato and you don't want to put it on top of the burger for some reason, put something with oil base to it or a fat on the bun, and that's going to help prevent that leaking, as well as grilling the bun will help with that too. And then as far as toppings, you know what? I completely appreciate a mustard, grilled onion, salt, pepper burger. cheese, of course. I have no problem with that. But I also encourage, I mean, burgers are about as cheap as you can get as far as serving people a meal, outside of hot dogs, our buddy Doug's favorite.
Mm-hmm.
Um, why not experiment? Queso, hot and spicy Cheetos, Alfredo sauce. I mean, get crazy, have fun. Who knows? You might come up with a burger that no one's ever thought of, and all of a sudden you've got something. Don't be afraid. It's going to be hard to ruin the burger. As long as you put on a topping that you would eat on its own, it's probably going to taste great on a burger.
David, I want to share with you. I wanted to share this last night. We didn't get a chance, but I wanted to share this with you. I was talking with our local chef, Marcus Garner, who owns Wine down here in Ottawa, and he makes the best burger, I think, in our area. And I eat burgers everywhere, folks. I don't just go this one place. I eat Beef O'Brady's. I go there. I've had burgers everywhere in this town, and they're all good. But his is my favorite, and I'm allowed to have a favorite. I'm still be your friend, so get over it. All right. What I like about Marcus's burger that I don't like about a lot of other burgers is Marcus's burger is controllable and it's edible at the table. And this is his theory, and I wanted to share this with you. He puts a jam on his burger. It's called a bacon jam. And in this jam, he's got bacon, tomato paste, and I'm not giving any secrets, folks. Marcus shared this with us last week on the show, so don't think I'm giving away Marcus's secret recipe because I'm not. He's already done that. He puts in the bacon jam, he puts bacon, tomato paste, brown sugar, balsamic vinegar reduced, onions, and garlic. And he puts all this in a pan, and he reduces it and stirs it to a jam consistency. And what he does, he puts that on the burger. He uses a slice of Summerdale Red Dragon cheddar cheese. He uses a brioche bun. He cooks the burger to about 135 degrees, and he puts in an aioli sauce that has caramelized onions in it. And what he does, this is his theory, David, and I want to share this with you and everybody. His theory is to infuse the flavors of all the things that we like, tomatoes, lettuce, mustard, cheese, whatever, that makes the burger, this big that you can't possibly eat it when they bring it to you at a restaurant. And I know there's some restaurants that serve them like that, but it's ridiculous because you can't eat it. What he does, he puts all those flavors into this, and of course the star is the Wagyu beef, and none of these flavors overpower the taste of that beef, David. All these flavors add to it, and I mean, when you bite into that, you can taste the bacon, you can taste the tomato, the brown sugar, the balsamic vinegar, the onions, and the garlic in the sauces that he uses. And then, of course, I have him put an egg on the top, and I make him flip it over because I don't want it runny. I know you like it runny. I don't like it runny. And
Fair enough.
And I just wanted to there's lots of different ways to do it, of course, but this was one way that I thought made a lot of sense. He's making a burger that's presentable at the table. It's delicious. You get all the flavors in it, but yet you're not wearing it all over your shirt when you leave, when you walk out of the restaurant. And you don't feel like you have to be taken home in a wheelbarrow after you eat because you're so stuffed. So, for what it's worth.
It sounds simplistic, but let me tell you what he's done. I'm a big fan of the Food Network. And every time you hear a judge say something, I could have used a little acid. I could have used a little sweet. They're always pulling out one of the senses or one of the taste sensations that you have.
Yeah.
And he's balanced them all. He's got the salty from the bacon. He's got the sweet from the sugar. He's got the acid from the tomato and the vinegar. He's got the umami, probably a little bit from the caramelized onions, maybe part of the Wagyu beef. I didn't really hear anything necessarily spicy, but I'm sure there's some sort of a pepper or flavor in there, not overly hot. He's got them all. He's probably got them simplistically balanced, and then it's just a burger with cheese, right? I mean, it's just the jam, the cheese, the burger, and a brioche bun, and that's it.
And aioli sauce, like a mayonnaise on the bun, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and that's probably just as much for lubrication as anything else with the mayonnaise. I think it sounds like he's done a really great job, and I'd love to try that burger. So when I come see my buddy Steve in Tennessee, he's going to take me out there, and we're going to have that burger.
Oh, we can do wine down. There's no doubt about that. David Huff from Oklahoma, thank you so much. You're great guest as always, and I appreciate your time. Sorry to keep you over, but it's fun to talk about hamburgers. I like it. And by golly, it's my show, and I'll do what I want. So I appreciate you very much.
Absolutely. Hey, sorry about the technical difficulties in the beginning. I don't know what happened. Always a pleasure, Steve. Appreciate it very much. Have a good day and smoke on, buddy.
It's a miracle that we even get it done this great. Thanks, David. We appreciate you. And let's see. Let's find David is gone. If I can just do one little thing here. There it is, and we'll do this one thing, and then we will bid farewell to all of the watchers and listeners. Everybody, thank you so much. Wes Phillips, thank you for watching us. Ken Smith, thank you for joining us. Everybody that took the time, Gary Depew, thank you as well. Everybody that took the time to stop by and say hi to the Al's Barbecue Show, we sure appreciate it. We'll be back here next Wednesday, and hopefully, cross your fingers, we can get Joe Varner from the Nuga Burger Tours on. He's got a conflict in his job, and we'll try to get him on next week. Maybe if we can't, we can tape something and show, because you'll really enjoy seeing Joe. Until next Wednesday night, everybody, thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. And remember, at the end of the day, this is why we always get together and talk about barbecue, because no one ever said, why don't you come over to the house and we'll sous vide. Good night, everybody.